Welcome to the 29th Miami Jewish Film Festival, the largest Jewish film festival in the world. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for the continued support throughout all of these years. My name is Dr. Alan Mason. I am a noted professor, music history teacher, and Jewish synagogue musical director in the area, and I'm so honored to be invited to interview the creative team for this beautiful film. We're going to have a beautiful shared conversation in the virtual world with director, writer Philip Paluso and producer-writer Amber Mays from the movie Sweet Lorraine in Auschwitz, which is premiering at this year's festival. Thank you all for joining us. Philip and Amber, welcome to Miami, Florida, at least in the world of virtual. Amber, where are you calling in from, please?
I am calling in from Westfield, Indiana, so just a little north of the capital of Indianapolis.
And Philip, how about yourself?
I'm calling in from Fishers, Indiana, which is northeast side suburb of Indianapolis.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. So in Miami's vast community of Jewish arts lovers, scholars, teachers, and presenters, I have been invited to interview you because I was told, oh, the movie is music inspired, music based. How perfect. Alan's a noted music teacher in the area. Let's invite him to do this. So I'm all ready to view the film and take in the music. And I note that for me, the music is a very not big part of the film. For me, the film was an hour and 45 minutes of a riveting, engaging, frightening, fearful, intense experience. Even sitting here comfortably at home, that's what came across for me. The fear and reality of the visuals and the story. As filmmakers, do you create this element of fear, tension, and pensiveness that had me riveted to the screen? Would one of you like to answer that?
Well, I'll go ahead and start off and with that. There was so much going on at that time in this little boy's life that the at first he wasn't truly aware of the the hellscape that he was going to be entering into. Um, a lot of people were just like Frank. They thought that, well, okay, it's a new regime, and we'll just ride it out until the war is over. But as the story progresses, and this was intentional, is the amount of danger escalates, and it escalates rather quickly. And then when the family is swept up in the Holocaust that hit Czechoslovakia, there's this understanding that things have really changed, and so as they are on their journey into uh, the SS um, camp systems, uh, that life is very fragile, and they notice that there are other people not surviving. So what we would wind into this story is a ticking clock, basically. This is a family that wanted to survive, and they're being held captive by people who didn't care whether they would survive or not. As a matter of fact, their intention is that they wouldn't. At the same time, there's Allied and Russian um, troops that are closing in on Germany. So, in essence, the story becomes a race against time, a race against um, the intention of the Nazi regime, and that is to wipe out every Jew in Europe.
Wow. Wow. I see, Philip, your title is director writer. Amber, your title is producer writer.
Yes.
So, Philip, as director writer, may I assume that the content we viewed and the dialogue we heard is your creative accomplishment?
Could you repeat that?
That you as your title as um director, writer,
Hmm.
you wrote the content, the script, the storyline. Did you take it out of reality and turn it into a film as director, writer?
Yeah, I mean, there comes a point when, as you embark on something like this, that you you need to have a vision,
Yes,
and so that there's a through line from beginning to end.
yes.
And as a director, it's my job to make sure that we stick to. I mean, there's a lot of things we could have talked about in terms of major events in World War II, but when it comes down to it, this is a story about um, Misha Grunwald. So you're always kind of walking this fine line of of bringing context to the viewer, but also making sure that there's going to be um, an adherence to the story, the focal point of the story. So my job is to kind of be a story wrangler,
Yeah.
and and Amber, in her role, is um, she is I'm an amateur student of history. I've I was a history minor in college, but Amber is like the real deal. I mean, she's a historian. So
So, mhm.
yeah, so as we write this, we our job is to be accurate,
Okay.
and we didn't have to embellish anything. I mean, what happened happened, and so um, in that regard, we just stick to that story, um, give information that gives context for people, and um, for those who aren't familiar with all the history, and this is where Amber is really great, is to include certain things so that people have an understanding of what's happening, not only to the Grunwalds in the death camp system, but also to the world as a whole, because um, they're all affected. Everybody who's swept up in the Holocaust is all affected by what's going on in the world at that time. So
And inviting Amber to participate in the interview as well. Your title, I'm looking at it, is producer writer. So, as producer, let's focus on writer. Did your scholarship come into contributing to the content of the film as writer?
Absolutely.
What is your
Um,
background in this subject, and how can you share what you brought your scholarship to it, please?
sure. Well, I have a graduate degree in Holocaust and Genocide Studies from Stockton University of New Jersey. So, I have been a student of this period of history since I was very young. And so it was always sort of this sort of tug and pull from Philip and I of what information, historical context that we want to ensure that we impart upon the audience while also not losing the storytelling. And as somebody with a historian background, it's very difficult for me to sort of synthesize things down because I want to explain it all. Um, But through our conversations, you know, there were points in which I said, we really need to make sure that people understand how Nazi Germany, how the Nazis even came to power. If we don't have that basis, then the audience is going to be left a little confused.
Mhm.
Um, Wanting to make sure that as we sort of discussed that tension of that race against time of the Allies and the uh, Nazi forces, sort of squeezing Europe and who's going to get to where Frank or Misha is his name as a young boy. He uh, took on the name Frank as his from his middle name when he arrived in the US. But I wanted to make sure that people understood the discrimination that Jews experienced, the violence that they experienced. I also wanted people to understand there were um, that there were victims, such as the Roma and Sinti, and um, those considered asocial.
Yes.
And that was, tied in directly to people who featured in Frank's life.
Mhm.
Um, so while I helped Philip sort of write some of the historical pieces or checked some of the information, a lot of the visuals that you see as far as archive materials, that's really where I came into play as far as writing the script. So I spent a lot of time in archives, really sort of piecing through hundreds of photos and film footage to really choose what would make the most sense from a historical accuracy point, but also from an emotional point in that moment of the film.
The film footage and videos totally captured, for me as a viewer, what you're sharing right now. I was amazed at the black and white film footage. And one of my questions is, where did that come from? It's so authentic and real, and the quality of it is so excellent.
So a lot of the archival footage came from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum.
Okay.
Um, but some of it has also come from a what did you say? It's a stock footage company called Pond 5, but they work with other archives. So there's some footage that is sort of you're not able to easily find outside of using that company. But I would say a fair 90% of it was just going through the Holocaust Museum
Oh,
archives.
in viewing it, I must say the believability and authenticity of it was very real for me. I was in the room where it was happening with that footage, viewing it and watching the photos. I was fascinated with the contrast between the black and white scenes and the color scenes. When the color scenes appeared, it was like that magical moment in The Wizard of Oz where the world not only becomes colorful, but dazzlingly sunshine colorful. I guess that was a purposeful intent to contrast the darkness of black and white with the brilliance of color.
Well, a lot of viewers are so used to seeing uh, World War II history through black and white film. And believe it or not, some of that film that was shot by the U.S. Army Signal Corps was actually shot in color, and they transferred it to black and white. Some of it exists in both domains,
Oh,
but what we wanted to do was to take people back in time.
Okay.
And so the intent was that uh, the some of the drama that's created by Frank's race against death is bringing people into that time period. And obviously he's on camera, so he did survive.
Yes.
But in order to continue the tension, that going back and forth from the black and white to the color helped to bring some resonance to that drama.
And I think I saw in my second viewing of the film late last night, in preparation for being with you today, that some of the scenes in the Grunwald's Czechoslovakia home, did they begin in a color, not brilliant color, but color appropriate to the time? And if the dialogue or story got sad, the color to me seemed to fade away to a rather colorless white and black, black and white. Like the sensibility of what was going on as their sadness was present to me, the color in their home seemed to disappear.
Yes, well, I'm glad you noticed
I
that.
noticed that. Yeah. I
Sometimes you do these things and you never, sometimes it feels like it's just for you. You never know if the audience is going to catch on to it.
oh
So, brava.
as a musician with a performing career on the stage, I could begin in a major key. And if the story gets sad, I'm going to transposition to a minor key. So, as I said earlier, I, of all the people in Miami, have been invited to interview you because of a musical motif in the film. I must say, to me, I was not interested in Frank's little bit of American jazz accordion playing. I don't know how a 7-year-old Czechoslovakian boy at that time knew how to play American jazz, but he did. In contrast to that, there was such gorgeous piano playing by Dr. Galit. What is her last name? Gershwin
Christensen.
from Ball State University. Was it an intentional comparison between the beauty of her classical piano playing, and she talked about musicianship, musicality as a human, we all have it, her joyous, classical, deeply felt piano playing, in contrast to Frank's on the accordion, we heard a little bit of a jazz tune here and there, but it was her pianism and musicianship that brought the brilliance of music to the film. Is it just me seeing that because I'm a professor of music, or was that intentional that she would be a polished classical pianist in her scenes?
Amber, while I'm formulating my answer here, do you have a thought on that?
Well, Galit is a renowned classical pianist.
It showed I
And
didn't know that.
yes, she is. And her focus actually is music created during or in response to the Holocaust. And so some of the piano that you'll hear, aside from Oyfin Prepicik, was written by those who experienced or were in Terezin.
Yes.
And so that was sort of our intention of having her be one of the people that we interviewed and to also have her play is because we did want that sort of uh,
Her, her,
that difference.
her playing brought me into the world of the Holocaust.
Well, that's good because as we talk about discuss in the film, is that uh, artists uh, who were um, who were imprisoned didn't stop being artists, and as a matter of fact, it was their pursuit of art that gave them uh, solace and maybe even hope.
Yes.
But as what's mentioned in the film is that that it's the music was not born uh, out of um, out of joy as much as it was born out of a need to keep being human
Yes.
and to not be dehumanized. And certainly for Frank and his brother John, they were able to um, uh, kind of box out what was going on around them by concentrating on this music that brought them to better times.
Yeah. Frank said much of the time was spent allowing the music to resonate in his own personal listening, which is
Yes.
beautiful. While the professor, Galit, talked about music as a universal birthright, that all of humanity is equally moved by the expressiveness of music. And
Yes.
one thing before we conclude, it's been so lovely being with you, thank you, is a question about Frank. To my ears, he speaks with a very lovely Midwestern American accent and not the voice of an Eastern European Jewish immigrant. Is that just my listening, or was he before his death an American? And you said he lived in the Midwest. Was it in Indiana or
It,
Illinois?
yes, Indiana. And
Why Indiana when all of everyone else was in Brooklyn?
well,
Why was he in Indiana?
well, work brought him to Indiana. He worked for um, eventually the name of the company was Thompson Electronics, and he was an industrial designer. It's very possible that if you bought a toaster, you know, 30 years ago, he designed it. So he was very artistic, not only from with sculpture, with painting, with music, but also in an industrial sense. And
Well,
so,
were his scenes the modern day scenes of today, which were all basically monologues? Was he treated as an actor? Did you work with him? Or was that his own beautiful presence? I'm assuming sitting in his own lovely home,
Yes.
yeah,
choosing out his own choice of Oxford shirt and V-neck sweater? Or is that
Yes.
part of your work?
Nope,
uh,
that was all Frank.
yeah, yeah. And remember that Frank became an advocate. He became a spokesperson, and so there's uh, a lot of times if I know the way in which a film is going to come together, I'll ask certain questions. Well, Amber crafted a wonderful uh, map of questions that allowed Frank to give us his understanding of not understanding his experiences without being edited or anything like that. So,
He,
um, which was great, and
he,
we
he,
spent
he,
3 days with him.
he spoke in a very, as if a measured calmness, but I think it was not measured. It was Frank being Frank, living in the world of logic,
Yep.
understanding, and where he is in life today. I admired him so much and was very sad to learn of his death when I read the concluding credits that soon after the completion of the film, he died. Yeah. Well, anything ever you'd like to say before we thank yous and goodbyes for this beautiful time spent together?
Uh, just that we hope everyone at the that attends the Jewish Miami Film Festival is moved by the film and wants to learn more about Frank's life. He had an amazing, amazing life, and very, very honored to play a small role in keeping my friend's story and legacy alive.
Uh, The Miami Jewish community is passionately connected to our shared Holocaust history, and I promise you the community of viewers who will be at the film will love it very, very much as I did. Philip, before we say goodbye, something you'd like to say, please?
Well, personally, I'm honored that you folks found favor with our film. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to those things that come with having a film at a prestigious film festival. And so thank you. Thank you very much.